The Dutch croquette. Almost every country or region has their own croquette, and they come in different shapes, different sizes, and with different fillings. But today we are going to have a closer look at the Dutch meat croquette. With an estimated consumption of over 300 million croquettes each year in the Netherlands, it is the second most popular snack after the frikandel. And then there are also bitterballen, which are basically croquettes, but then in the form of a ball. And back in the day, they were accompanied with a strong herbal alcoholic drink called a bitter, hence the name bitterballen. But nowadays they're an especially popular snack during afternoon drinks. Fun fact, there is actually a law, well technically a motion, named after the croquette, the krokettensmotie. And it was proposed in 1993 by Jan Peter Balkenende, former Prime Minister of the Netherlands, and the Dutch Municipal Council of Amstelveen. And the motion called for the right of council members to a free croquette if their meeting lasts until after 11 p.m. And it was initially meant as a joke, but I guess there are not many people in the Netherlands who say no to a croquette, and especially a free croquette. So the motion was adopted and till this day is still in force. But how did the croquette become so popular? There's also a lot of people wondering what's actually in a croquette and how can you make your own croquettes at home. You'll find out in this video. The beef croquette has a very long tradition. The first written recipe was found in a cookbook from 1705 written by the cook of King Louis XIV. But the oldest Dutch croquettes date from 1830. In those days, leftover meat was cooked and processed into croquettes in order to preserve the meats. But what initially was a food for elites started to gain popularity amongst the general public. The reason of its growing popularity was a result of different changes which were all happening at the same time, and of which a change in snack and food culture in general was arguably one of the most pivotal reasons. Traditionally, the Dutch preferred to eat at home, and most people would have 3 meals a day. But with the growing popularities of cafeterias, restaurants, and cafes in the 50s and the 60s, more and more people started to eat outside of the home. At the same time, there was a growing popularity in the food walls, which you'll still find all over the country if you visit the Netherlands, and all of these changes combined contributed to a change in snack and food culture. Another factor in the rise and availability of snacks is explained in this newsreel from 1973.
Statistieken hebben uitgewezen dat de Nederlanders steeds meer uit de muur eten, zoals dat heet. Kroketten zijn daarbij favoriet. Hoewel er tal van snackbars en bedrijven zijn die hun artikelen zelf maken, is de kans toch groot dat uw uit de muur getrokken kroket uit een fabriek in Maastricht komt. $15 jaar geleden begon een slagerszoon met het maken van wat kroketten voor enkele cafés in de buurt. Nu draaien machines er elke week 500.000 uit, die hun weg vinden door heel Nederland en onder meer ook worden uitgevoerd naar België en Duitsland. Van het een kwam het ander. Na de kroketten, de lumpia's. 150.000 per week. In dezezelfde sfeer moeten daar dan nog worden bijgeteld zo'n 100.000 bami- en nasi-schijven. Dat er tegenwoordig ongelooflijk veel van al dat spul wordt verslonden, bewijst voorts de wekelijkse productie van schrik niet 1 miljoen frikandellen. De grotendeels geautomatiseerde fabriek biedt werk aan 115 mensen. Daaronder slagers en koks en ongeschoold vrouwelijk personeel dat onder meer te werk is gesteld op de pakafdeling, waar het een grote handvaardigheid heeft ontwikkeld. De voedselindustrie weet zich efficiënt aan te passen aan onze gewijzigde eetgewoonten.
As was mentioned in the video, because of the growing demand of snacks, more and more cafeterias from all over the country who initially made their own snacks were now starting to buy them from snack manufacturers, of which most of them were in the south of the country. Because of the background of the manufacturers in the south, who were often butchers, they made their croquettes with beef which had stewed for hours, resulting in croquettes with shredded beef. Meanwhile, in the west of the country, of which Amsterdam is part, it were mainly bakers who were making croquettes, and this resulted into a slightly different products. So instead of beef, a lot of bakers were using veal, and instead of shredding the meat over a long time, they were cutting it into cubes. And some well-known bakers and bakeries in the west of the country are Fabo, Van Dobbe, Kwekkenboom, and Holskamp, which are all still in business. So if you ever visit Amsterdam, it is definitely worth visiting one of those places. From the 70s, kroketten started to be sold in supermarkets, and alongside classic Dutch brands such as Mora and Becker's, which are from the south of the country, you can also get bitterballen from KFC nowadays in supermarkets. However, if you are not in the Netherlands, it might be a bit harder to get your hands on bitterballen and kroketten. In that case, you can always make them yourself at home, and that is exactly what I am going to do. To make kroketten, you will need curled parsley, bay leaves, dried chili, cloves, star anise, garlic, nutmeg, water, cumin, anise seeds, peppercorns, salt, an egg, butter, breadcrumbs, an onion, flour, and braising or stewing steak. I am using ribeye steak, which is a boneless rib steak. However, it can be substituted for any type of beef, meat, with or without bones that can be stewed. Melt butter in a heavy bottom pan and sear the meats on both sides. Instead of using a bouillon cube, I am going to flavor my own stock. To do that, I'm adding all the spices to the seared meat. However, if you do not have these spices or you don't like the combination of spices, feel free to use a bouillon cube or make your own spice mix. Add enough water to cover the meat and let it stew over a low heat for at least 4 hours. But however long you stew it, make sure to keep an eye on the pot and to add more water if needed. And here it is after 4 hours. Use a fork or your hands to shred the beef. Strain the stock and set it aside. To make a roux, melt butter over medium heat in a heavy bottom pan and gradually add the flour while continuously stirring. When all the flour has been added, gradually start to add the bouillon. At this point, taste and decide to see if you want to add some more flavor. Turn off the heat and add the nutmeg. And I'm specifically adding it at this point because I want the nutmeg to really stand out in the kroketten. Add the chopped parsley and mix it. Remove it from the heat source and add the shredded beef. Put it in a dish and refrigerate it for at least 8 hours or overnight. And this is how it looked like the next day. It has had the time to set and firm up. Cut the cooled down ragu into bars. These will eventually become the croquettes. If you want to make bitterballen instead, cut the ragu into cubes. Generously coat your work surface with breadcrumbs and roll each piece of the ragu into a oblong croquette. To make bitterballen, scoop some of the ragu on the work surface and roll it into a bowl. To prevent the croquettes from bursting open in a hot oil, we're going to double bread them, and for that we'll use egg whites and more breadcrumbs. Roll the croquettes and bitterballen in egg white before coating them with the second layer of breadcrumbs. And if you want to be extra safe, you could go for an extra coating. At this stage, they can also be frozen to be fried at a later point, but I will be frying mine right away. For that, heat vegetable oil over medium heat of around 175 Celsius and fry the bitterballen and kroketten until they're golden brown. And there it is. If you like this video, you might also like this video on how croquettes are done in West Africa. And as always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for weekly recipe videos.